Sophie, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
So, you are a jeweler. I want to know what part of the jewelry industry inspired you to go into that sector. So what market? What was it that you thought, okay, is it the creativity aspect or what was it that drew you to it?
Good question. I really always thought I was going to work in fashion. Like I grew up with a little sewing machine trying to make clothes when I was really little. And then I did a couple of internships and decided that it really was Devil Wears Prada vibe. And then I did an internship at a jeweler called Anushka and totally fell in love with the sparkly things, like the beauty of jewelry. And it was still within that world of fashion, but it was a bit more straightforward. It was a bit more personal, a bit more intimate, um, and obviously beautiful. But I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I did lots of little jobs in ecom, marketing, PR, trying to figure out what I loved and what I didn't like. I think when you're at university even or school before, there's so much pressure to figure out exactly what you want to do. Um, and it's so hard to kind of create a career path from the get-go. So I think especially in the creative industries, you've got to try it out and test it and just throw yourself into it to see what you want to do. So there wasn't really anything that really drew me to the role. It was more just like the beauty of jewelry, and the kind of storylines of maybe why people were buying pieces of jewelry, people collecting jewelry. Um, yeah, the kind of intimacy and relationships behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you mention the sparkly bits because I do think it's like the little girl's dream. I want to create beautiful jewelry and the timelessness, I think of it,
Yeah.
because you mentioned fashion, but fashion comes and goes before you even realize. Like the trends are in and out, in and out. Whereas jewelry, it becomes heirlooms, like gets passed down from generation to generation. And having that intimacy of whether it's an engagement ring that is symbolic of union between two people, or you have like a bracelet that's passed down from grandmother to granddaughter, and so on, so on, so on. It's, yeah, I guess it's quite an honor almost to be able to do that for people. And you're not just providing them with a quick shop, they don't just walk in and grab a bracelet and go out. It's that whole process of it. So I imagine you have to do a lot of people management within that as well.
Yeah, big time. Sometimes I feel like a therapist. Because it's so personal, people really do open up to you, especially around engagements. Quite often, it's my client's first ever big purchase, and they need a lot of kind of hand holding and reassurance that they're doing not doing the right thing with proposing, but in terms of jewelry design, it can be quite intimidating. So yeah, people tend to kind of let down their guard a bit and open up, which is really nice about their relationships. But the back to the kind of sparkly aspect, I remember someone told me this really cool fact that humans are innately drawn to sparkly things because way back when, maybe Neanderthal times, we have this instinct to look for water. So in the desert, when we see something sparkling, then it kind of, I don't know, sparks some sort of serotonin in our brain to go looking for it. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, the psychology behind it, because then obviously the engagement ring came about. It's literally round because it's the eternal bond between two people, and you wear it as a symbol of I'm betrothed to this person, and it's that visual for lots of different people to see, hey, like this person's engaged to this person, and it's that symbolic aspect of it. But then, of course, we have the jewelry, like the diamonds that have come into that, because originally they were just made out of any metal, I guess. And then I was doing a bit of research into it because I think it's so interesting, the symbolism of the diamond engagement ring or whatever jewel you may choose. And apparently it dates back to like 1477. So Archduke Maximilian of Austria, he had this big diamond on this ring that he gave to Mary of Burgundy, and this influenced people then because he was at a certain level in society that is like, oh, okay, this is what we do now. And now it's kind of snowballed into this business that it's a whole thing of, oh, what diamonds, how much are you spending? And then some people say, I guess this might be an urban myth, but you need to spend 3 months' salary on your engagement ring and things like that, which I think lots of people have different opinions on it. As a jeweler, what's your thoughts on how much people should spend on an engagement ring?
Oh, this is such a good question because boys, like some of my friends, are always like, okay, so how much should we spend? And even in initial calls with clients, it's a hot topic. And what's interesting is that I have clients from all over the world, and each country has a different kind of average of what they spend, which I find fascinating. Americans are always a bit bigger is better. They like to throw money at it, whereas Brits are kind of average, and then Norwegian clients are a little bit more modest, and they're kind of new to the engagement ring game. So I think honestly, it's whatever you're most comfortable with. It's so hard to say. It definitely is an urban myth, like the 3 month salary type thing. Um, if you have loads of money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be spending loads of money in a ring. It's totally up to you. I can tell you like the averages of what people spend. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
um, so I would say in the UK currently my clients spend between kind of 6 to 10K. Um, our rings start at 4, and then it can really go up to like 40K. It just depends on the quality of the diamonds. Um, but
Wow.
that also changes because if you go to one of the bigger brands like Tiffany's, you'll be adding a zero to that. It's wild how much they charge compared to bespoke jewelers.
So why is that? Why do companies like Tiffany, why can they get away with charging such a high price? Is it actually the quality of it, or is it the brand and the name and the little blue box and things like that?
It's a real mix. I mean, bespoke jewelers like myself still use brilliant artisans and craftsmen in Hatton Garden, who've been doing it for decades, just like Tiffany's. But they have they have the resources to kind of go above and beyond. So I guess their stone selection might be that bit better. But what you're really paying for is their overheads. I mean, they have such beautiful stores, big offices full of marketing teams and ecom teams and social teams, etc. Stunning boutiques that you can go into, and then obviously their little blue box and advertising, etc. So it all adds up, and you're paying for. You can kind of see what you're paying for when you look at it like that. But I think with brands, if you love a brand and you're someone that buys into a brand and you love that kind of shopping experience, you should totally do that. And if they have a kind of signature style that's super cool, you should go down that route. Whereas if you're open to something a bit more personal, then bespoke is the way for sure.
So it's quite a lot of pressure for someone's coming in and they're spending, say, like £10,000 on a ring. That's a lot of, I would say, like, it's a high budget and it's a lot of pressure to have that shopping experience going in. It's not like they're popping into H&M to buy a £10 top. You need to have that quality of customer experience throughout, not just in the end product, I imagine, because as we said, you have a lot of consultations with them, you're talking a lot about it because it's such a significant moment and it's often the first large purchase that they've made. So how
Mm.
have you kind of facilitated this process, and what are your steps that you go through when someone walks in the door or contacts you and says, okay, I want to buy an engagement ring?
So first of all, I try and make the whole process as relaxing and fun as possible because as I said, the industry can be very intimidating. It's their first purchase or big purchase. And they're really dipping into an industry that they've never, ever, unless they've bought some nice piece of jewelry, but it is a huge purchase. They've never really dealt with diamonds or colored gemstones. So you can read up and learn about it quite quickly. But I provide a service where I really hold my clients' hands through it and guide them. It is definitely a collaborative experience. I think with bespoke jewelry, it's really, really important to go with the client's style and make sure that it fits really well within their own jewelry collection. And sometimes my clients laugh when they say, I don't have a jewelry collection, but everyone wears jewelry and you have something that you're drawn to. So I always ask them to send photos of their hands and their rings and their earrings and everything to make sure that it's seamless. And yeah, as I said, very personal. So the first kind of step is an initial call just to make sure that we're on the same page. We talk the process, budgets, any ideas, design ideas, and then find a time for them to come in and look at gemstones, which is really fun. Clients can be quite overwhelmed sometimes looking at maybe 4 or 5 stones in front of them, but this is where I kind of talk them through the different characteristics of the gemstones. And then it's always really important, I think, to see gemstones in person. You can often see them online and see pictures. You can shop that way as well if you want. But I really think certain gemstones speak to certain people. They'll look different in person. So that's a really, really nice moment. And then from there, we go away and make some sketches of what the design's going to look like. I'll pick up any accent stones that are needed. And then once that design's developed, then the workshop will take all the stones, measure them to an inch of their lives, and then create a CAD, which is really where the ring comes to life. And it's basically a 3D model of what it's going to look like. And then from there, the gold is cast. Every ring is handmade in Hatton Garden, so hand set, polished, hallmarked, and then delivered. And it's a 2 month, roughly give or take, process. So yeah, lots of occasional late night texts from clients, slightly worried or yeah, just it's a really fun process that takes a while, but is handled with a lot of care and love. And it's so nice. I think by the end of it, I really feel like I've become friends with my clients because we spent so much time discussing something so personal. It's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I want to ask you a little bit more about like the engagement ring process. It's quite funny because I'm married. I feel like I can ask about engagement rings any amount of time. You know, it's fine. We can ask.
It's not
But yeah,
a
it's
word
it's
anymore.
so I want to like do. How often do people just come in and they say, okay, I want to propose? Like, say it's a man traditionally. Obviously, times are changing. But like a man traditionally is saying, okay, I want to propose to my girlfriend. I don't know what she likes. I don't know what she wants. What do you do in that situation?
It's a tough one. Because the majority of the time, they'll know. I think I always say this to clients: the ring should never be a surprise. The proposal should be the surprise. I think anyone thinking about getting married has obviously spoken about it at length. If you haven't, then maybe go speak about it. But the ring, she or he is going to be wearing it for the rest of their lives, and should have some sort of input. I have had a couple of rings that were a bit touch and go, but we went with something a bit more classic and sleek and kind of pared back because then they can either add to it later down the line or they can make a really cool kind of funky wedding ring to go with it.
Mhm.
Um, but in that case, in that instance, in that initial call, when they're like, I have no idea, either I'll go and tell them to go and find out, or will look at their jewelry collection and see what they wear and try and like design something that fits really nicely within.
Yeah, a bit of sneaking about and taking photos of their
Yeah,
partner's
exactly.
jewelry. It's like,
Yeah,
I think they like this. I think they like that. Have
yeah.
you ever had any like failed proposals and they had to return the ring?
No, thank God. No, not yet.
Okay, that's good.
But I imagine it will happen at some point. I feel like we've had a really good run so far, but that's bound to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but as I said, I tell them to go. It's so personal that, like, if they haven't spoken about it, then I maybe be like, maybe
I love that you
mention.
have to turn into like a relationship therapist along.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. But then also, I don't want to be in that situation where I make a ring and then it has to be returned or something has to change.
Yeah,
It's so sad.
exactly. So is all of your jewelry generally made to order, or do you have a collection that people can walk in and say, I'd like to buy that?
Yeah, so everything is made to order. At the moment, I have a jewelry collection called Jewelry Staples, but I've gone back to the drawing board and we're redesigning it. It's just a really nice way for people to find gifts. It's more for like birthdays or anniversaries or Christmas or bridal jewelry. I've noticed, having just got married, that there's not that many brands that do kind of well priced bridal jewelry that you would want to wear afterwards. Um, and I think it's quite a nice investment piece. And quite often people get gifted maybe tennis bracelets or other pieces of jewelry for like a wedding morning gift. Um, so I think instead of just like looking for tennis bracelets, if there's more of a collection to look for or look through, then that's quite a nice thing to have. But I'm going to relaunch it just before Christmas. So
Good
stay tuned.
timing. Good
Yeah,
timing. You've worked in marketing.
exactly.
So, as a jeweler yourself, I feel like if someone says, okay, I'm going to go and buy something, some jewelry for myself, it's quite scary going to a jeweler because you think, oh my goodness, I don't have several £1,000s to spend on myself for a piece of jewelry, but I'd really like to buy something special. What sort of thing would you suggest someone to buy themselves as like a nice, like, present for themselves or for a friend that might cost like a few £100, or even like what sort of budget, like just the entry level nice jewelry that people could kind of get their first lovely piece which they could cherish, that's good quality, but they don't need to have a massive investment within it.
Yeah, good question. I really live by spending money on the things you're going to wear every day. I think you really should invest in something that you're actually going to use instead of, I don't know, buying a really expensive dress to wear to a wedding once. I think that's so silly. So I would say a pair of hoops, gold hoops, white gold hoops, that are going
Got
to
my
last
gold hoops in.
forever. Perfect. But they're such a staple and they're never going to go out of fashion. And I think you can dress them up, dress them down. You literally don't have to take them out. So I think they're a really, really good first kind of investment piece. That or a really nice kind of gold chain is always a winner. Because then also you can add things to it. You can add little pendants, even if it's just gold plated, but you can always kind of change it out. Um, but recently, a few clients have come to me for their 30th birthday presents for gifts for themselves, which has been really nice. And quite often they've brought me kind of their granny's engagement ring. So we've taken out diamonds or gemstones and then reset it into something that they're going to wear forever. So that does cost a little bit more, I have to say. Resetting starts at about 2K, but for like a 30th birthday, I think it's a really nice gift for yourself.
And I think that's amazing that you can reuse that jewelry and you can reform it and you can make it more modern if it's a traditional setting. But I'm interested in the trends about jewelry because we kind of mentioned like fashion, it's very fleeting. And although jewelry, it's stays in trend, I guess, for a lot longer. But I would say that engagement rings at the moment, for example, I see a lot of them like that oval clear diamond on the gold band. Beautiful. But I'm like, I've noticed that as a trend. And I don't know
Yeah.
if I've just tuned in because a lot of my contemporaries are getting engaged, so I'm more aware of it. Or like, are there always trends that go through? And how can you combat that when you're spending several £1,000s on an engagement ring? You don't want it to go out of fashion or look dated.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the oval colorless diamond on a thin gold band is all down to Hailey Bieber, the ultimate
Is she the
trendsetter.
one
We
that
love
started
her.
it? Because Molly
Yeah,
May has got one as well.
true,
Yeah.
true. But I really think universally there was such big hype after Hailey had hers.
Mm.
I honestly think hers must be about 5 or 6 carats. It's huge. Um, it's just nuts. But I think it's really hard to kind of combat the trends if you're not that into jewelry, if you don't really wear jewelry that often, because you will just kind of see what's right at the moment. And if you're just popping into jewelry stores, you'll see what's cool and kind of trending. But I think it kind of goes back to that element that jewelry is so personal, and you really need to look at what you love and what you wear and what you think will still look good eventually. I mean, you can always reset a ring, a diamond, or a gemstone. So it's not the end of the world if you hate it. I've had so many inquiries about that actually. Lots of like 2010s halos. So a diamond with like a kind of pave diamond halo around it. A few clients have got in touch to see if they can reset those. But I think just if you're unsure and you don't have a really strong sense of style or self-style, do something that's quite traditional that hasn't gone out of style. So
Mhm.
a trilogy, a solitaire, a 5 stone ring, just something really kind of elegant, and then you can always jazz it up with an eternity ring or a wedding ring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And what is your personal style in jewelry? If you like, did you design your own engagement ring yourself?
I did, yeah. Um, So, how to describe my own personal style? I think also a really good tip when thinking about what you'd want for an engagement ring is create a Pinterest board or a mood board of some sort, and you really need to sit on it and see what keeps coming back. Keep swapping it out for new things that you like, and keep editing that board until the right thing comes around. So when I was designing my own engagement ring, I was slightly overwhelmed because I was like, this needs to be amazing. Like, this can't be a flop. I was like, I need to love the best engagement ring.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. And my poor husband, because I mean, he knew what to do. I basically told him to propose with some sort of other ring and then we design it together. So he actually got me to design my proposal ring, which was this like little eternity ring. And he got a friend to commission it without me realizing, which at the time didn't seem strange because I've done quite a lot of his friends' rings. But it was a bit shady. And then when I dropped this off to his friend, he went into like extreme detail about his own proposal, which and I was hyping him up for it. It was such a funny experience. And then that weekend, my husband proposed to me with this ring. I felt like such a mug.
Did you not catch
Really,
on? Were you totally taken in by it?
no, the man deserves an Oscar.
That's
It makes me sound really thick, but I was doing some kind of investigative work. I can't even say that word. I was doing some like digging into what um was going on, because the beginning I was like a bit unsure, but he kept sending me like photos of his girlfriend being like, she'll never know, and like went into real detail about what was going to happen. So anyway, then
hiding
we
in plain sight. Just hiding
I
in plain.
know it's so obvious. I felt really silly, but it was a great surprise. So then I kind of went back to the drawing board, and obviously I'm always looking at different rings for work anyway. And this style of ring always kept popping up. so when I went to make a mood board, because I really treated myself like a client, I went to make a mood board to see what I would want, started from scratch. And this ring kept popping up, and I was like, no, 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 like let's try and see what else is out there. And I kept coming back to this one, which is very similar to Angelina Jolie's ring. And when I told that to my fiance at the time, he was like, of course, that is so ridiculous that you want Angelina Jolie's ring, which is like 6 carats. It's 3 times as big as mine. But we kind of took inspiration from that and built on it. And I knew I wanted something a bit more sleek. So I don't know if you can see this, but we went for an emerald cut and baguettes just because I preferred the kind of sleek lines of that.
Mhm.
And I also, this is quite random, I really like fluted glass things, like corrugated glass. Do you know what I mean when I say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
So that's what I wanted the kind of side diamonds to look like.
Oh, cool.
So they're super thin. There's 22 of them.
That sounds so fiddly.
I know, my poor jeweler,
Yeah,
the setter.
incredible. And then I want to ask you about your business as well, because you've got your business in your own right that you do like work directly with clients rather than working for a bigger firm. So what was your decision to do that independently in your own right?
Um, so I was working in PR before, which was a lot of fun. I was doing PR for a jewelry brand. And I loved the kind of people aspect of that, meeting people, meeting journalists and influencers and stuff. But I was very arty at school. I loved creating things, and I really missed that in life, I guess. Um, so when COVID hit, like many of us, I kind of reassessed what I wanted to do with my life. I had done a gemology course once before, um, in Antwerp, which is the kind of historic base for diamonds, huge port for diamond trading, which was amazing. I loved it. It's very sciencey. It's not that creative, so it kind of goes down the more um, like your science aspect. It's basically physics and chemistry, and you're looking down a microscope for hours of the day, um, which I absolutely loved. So then when I went back to my PR job, after that, I decided that I wanted to do the GIA certificate, which is the kind of main one that is recognized globally. Um, so I quit my job and I moved to New York, and I studied there for a year, which was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was also one of the best years of my life. It was amazing. I think it's really important to do some kind of solo traveling. Even though I wasn't traveling, I didn't really know anyone when I moved there. And I think kind of in all fields of what you want to do, or if you kind of just need to be shoved out of your comfort zone, do something drastic like that, and you learn a lot about yourself. So that was amazing. Met some really cool people. The course was the best thing ever. And whilst I was there, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to be a bit more hands-on with designing and the actual gemstones. So when I came back, I was looking for roles in production. So kind of not exactly gemstone buying, but dealing with everything and I guess procuring things for different designs. But that's such a niche job and really difficult to find. And I think just after COVID, no one was hiring. So I just started hanging out in Hatton Garden and making connections with workshops and gemstone dealers. I actually had a friend that went to the same school as me who did something similar to what I'm doing now. And she introduced me to some people, which was really helpful, because it is a very closed off community. People really keep their cards close to their chest, and it is very much a who you know and heavily networking. It's very relationship heavy and built on trust. It's a really interesting place to be. So I spent a few months doing that, and whilst I was doing that, I was kind of just taking on commissions whilst I was still looking for a full-time job, because I was like, I'm 25, I need more experience. This is so scary. I can't do this on my own. And then I started making some engagement rings and delivering just for like friends, and delivering those rings was the best feeling ever. I was like, this, I need to keep doing this. It was just the coolest thing to be part of something so special. And seeing it from the beginning to the end. Don't get me wrong, lots of things have gone wrong especially in the beginning. Not recently at all, but the beginning, just like I I remember using this one workshop who were awful, so so bad. And when you work on your own, there's no one else to kind of share that angst or worry. Um, but I think, yeah, you just got to kind of pick yourself back up and dust yourself off, and you end up becoming so, I guess, tough and thick-skinned in quite an early part of building your own company. But yeah, it kind of, like, as I said, I was still looking for jobs, and it just kind of kept going. So I never really meant to do this full time. It just kind of happened, and it's honestly been the best thing. So happy working for myself. I never loved working in a team. I always thought I always thought it was just easier to just do things on my own. And I hate admin for admin's sake, and working in a company, that's quite a lot of what you have to do, especially as a junior person.
Yeah.
So I was more than happy to just do it myself. And I've definitely built a small team around me. I don't I've just incorporated the company, so we're a limited company but now, so I can hire people, but I work with everyone on a freelance basis so far. So I have my workshop, obviously gemstone dealers, and then a marketeer.
Mhm.
So
Amazing. And I guess in a creative industry, it's almost easier to be independent because there's no creative clashes. You can have that freedom to kind of do what you want and deal in a way that you feel is natural to you and the working style that you have, because creativity is quite funny because it's all about the environment. So if you're stressed or you're feeling like you have to deal with loads of admin or you're snowed under, you're just not in the right headspace. So
yeah.
you need to have that right environment that will nurture you to be able to get the best creative output that you can, especially when you're actually making significant pieces for people, whether it's an engagement ring or a really special jewelry piece. Yeah, I guess you need to really nurture that. So it is about the environment and how you're feeling, more so perhaps than other industries where, of course, it helps if you're in an environment that helps. But creativity, I think, is something that you really need to be aware of your surroundings, even like the lighting, the comfort, the all those different things, like social aspects as well. So that's super interesting. But you were also featured in Vogue, which is super cool. Um, and do you think, firstly, I'm interested in your opinion about whether people still read magazines, like paper magazines, and the impact of that. Did you actually find like a boost in that? And then also the online sales. You kind of mentioned that you work with people all around the world. How has that expanded since, I guess, maybe since COVID, or what's that been rather than just face to face in a locality?
Such good questions. The Vogue thing's funny because obviously I worked in PR. So that was my job for a few years. And I've totally gone off traditional PR. I think it's so, I don't want to get myself into trouble saying this, but I think it's so unnecessary. Um, I think it's nice for to kind of have that verification from the kind of household titles, but I don't think I got. I mean, it's also very hard to measure unless it's online. So I don't know if anyone really came directly to me. I remember when I was doing PR, Vogue wasn't really one that people could have. It wasn't very shoppable title, I guess, in print. Titles like Country Life are actually very shoppable because they get delivered to people who like to read the magazine on a Sunday and like to shop through it. So Yeah, it was more the kind of verification that was useful for me. What's been most interesting is that basically all of my clients come through social media now. I have like occasionally a friend of a friend or a friend commissioning a piece, but like 80%, 85% is are complete strangers that it's either like girls that have seen me on TikTok and they've sent it to their partner, and then they get in touch and they're like, "Oh, apparently I need to speak to you," or they've seen me on Instagram. Um, so yeah, that's definitely way more beneficial, and I'd much rather kind of spend money advertising that way, which I haven't done yet. I'd be interested to find an influencer to do the whole engagement ring process with. But I think just kind of chatting online about what you're doing and getting out there is really helpful. And yeah, honestly, most of my clients are through TikTok. It's crazy.
It's so interesting though, because like you worked in PR and communications and marketing, so you've done like the theoretical behind it and those like household titles like Vogue, etc. But perhaps posting on TikTok or Instagram or whatever platform you have an audience on is the ultimate marketing tool, which is quite funny when it's like obviously maybe to gain an audience and to work with brands, but to actually sell like expensive pieces of jewelry online through that. It's quite interesting how that's all changed, because I feel like that's quite recent that it's changed. The significance of that is more powerful than traditional media advertising outlets.
Yeah, I think it does come down to kind of two things. COVID definitely boosted jewelry sales, and not just jewelry sales, but everyone was shopping online. So you you trusted websites more, I guess. But I think after COVID, people had extra cash lying around, so they'd spend on things that were on a wish list for ages. And quite often it was more kind of talismanic pieces that we're just more thoughtful. But I think also with TikTok, it breaks down that kind of barrier of a brand. And I think as with something that's so personal, I think people really love meeting the person who is going to be doing that. And I think if you kind of bring it back down to earth, then it is more approachable and it is more trustworthy instead of kind of having this shop front and this really exclusive brand and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. Whereas I think when you're spending so much money, I think our generation really love the transparency and they love to get to know you, and trust you, because as I said, the whole industry is built on trust. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good tool.
It's
Um,
almost, if you think about it from a psychological point of view, so you have the person to person, so people approach you and say, I'd really like you to work with me on this piece, and you're working directly from that. Like they pick up the phone, they phone you, they're not through to a call center or a million options to pick. You pick up the phone, they're speaking directly to you about the piece that they're working on with you, rather than, phoning up Cartier and then they have to get through to the right person and, oh wait, what was your reference number and what's your file and all this. I don't know how they do it, but I assume it's something like that. But then we're online, which is almost the least personal that it's ever been in life, because you don't know the people. Like you look online, you don't meet them in real life. So we've almost become such a digital age that we're not wanting to have those interactions just with shops. We want to go all the way back, because even though we're all digital and we're all quick and we're all convenient, we still seek that interaction person to person, because psychologically, physiologically in our brains, like that is how we're built. We want to
mhm.
have that interaction. And whether it's instead of ordering Uber Eats, like actually going to the local takeaway or whatever and getting it because you're speaking to that person. And I think that that little human interaction, it's almost those little interactions of 5 times, like saying hello to someone on the street, going to the supermarket, saying hi to the postman or whatever. that make you feel like you've got a community around you. So if we're all in the digital age, we're not speaking to people, we're working from home, we're doing it all online, to actually be able to speak to someone about something, then you add in the significance of the, the cost and the significance of the piece that people are buying. It's quite interesting that we've gone full circle, that even though we've removed so much interaction, but by having it online, we're still needing that. So we're almost going out of our way to like say, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do my own research and find someone who I trust and have that relationship with them online. It's so interesting, isn't it? That no matter what we do, we still can't fight against it.
Completely. I think it's so nuts that we've gone so digital that we're now all kind of obsessed with these videos that are so mundane, that are so relatable, that you feel like you're on FaceTime to your friend without actually being on FaceTime to your friend. It's kind of freaky. And then I think because we're not going to shop so much, it can be intimidating to go into a shop sometimes. So then I think if you've built this kind of relationship with someone online, then they're trusted, and then they're happy to come in and see something that's a bit more personal and less intimidating. I think you need to kind of create a safe space for them almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that comes into the customer experience even more. And then you having to act as a therapist for people even more.
Yeah.
And all of those people skills and things like that. I'm sure that there's lots and lots of levels. And I feel like we could go down like deeper and deeper into the psychological, like human behavior in that way. But instead of doing that, I'm going to ask you your thoughts on lab grown diamonds versus mined diamonds. Which ones do you prefer? And what do you think?
Uh, it's it's such a hot topic at the moment. With the introduction of lab grown diamonds, which are as kind of as cheap as you can get. I was going to say as cheap as chips. They kind of are. Um, they have driven down the price of natural diamonds. So everyone's talking about them at the moment.
So they've
For
driven down the
clarification,
price of like mined
yeah,
diamonds or natural
of
diamonds.
mine diamonds, yeah,
So they
at the moment because
okay.
people are going for lab diamonds. So
Okay.
then the price of natural diamonds has also gone down a little bit. And that means that people are holding on to rough diamonds until the price goes up. So they're not cutting any extra diamonds until the price goes back up. So at the moment, there is a bit of a lack of diamonds in London, which is quite frustrating, having to buy abroad quite often at the moment, which is fine. But for clarification, a lab grown diamond is exactly the same as a mined diamond or a natural diamond, is chemically and optically exactly the same. They just come or have been grown in different ways. So even myself as a gemologist, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You need a special type of machinery called a diamond tester, which will tell you if it's lab grown or mined. So you would never know the difference. Um, However, the main difference between the two of them, one is the price. Second is that a lab grown diamond will never kind of gain any value. Once you've bought it, it will kind of stay at that, whereas a natural diamond will always go up in value. So it kind of comes down to what you would like your ring to be. Obviously, you don't buy a ring expecting it to ever sell it. But if you're buying a ring to kind of be an heirloom piece that you'd like to pass on through generations, you see it as being a kind of treasure forever, then a mined diamond is probably better for you. But if it's just something that you would just like something bigger is better, then lab is better for you. I really like how accessible lab grown diamonds have made engagement rings to people. Um, it's I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. It's a really tough topic because I don't want to sway anyone. Whenever I get questions from clients, I always send them this Vogue article, which was written by a really amazing jewelry journalist called Annabelle Davidson, who kind of breaks down the argument into layman's terms. And it's hard because people come to me and they're like, but it's better for the environment. And what do you think about that? Like people mining for things, it's so bad, but actually so much energy goes into creating a lab grown diamond that environmentally, of course, creating a big um, gouge out of the earth is not good. But I think they both have their pros and cons, and I can't exactly say which one I prefer because it's so hard because I like both of them. My own engagement ring, for example, the center diamond is natural, whereas the accent stones are lab because I wanted to use more of the budget on the thing that I would like to pass on down generations. I'm obviously such a diamond geek as well that I really want a natural diamond. But I quite often suggest that to clients if they want to make the most of their budget and they want more than one diamond in a ring. Do something amazing with a natural diamond in the center, and then any extra ones you just lab ones. Um, and also, as I said before, spend money on the things that you'll wear every day. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard conversation, and it really depends on who you speak to. Anyone working for the bigger companies, I don't think like Cartier or Tiffany's or like other brands like Jessica McCormack, they don't think they use any lab grown diamonds. So um and yeah, any of the jewelers that you'll find on like Old Bond Street in Mayfair, they probably don't use lab growns. Whereas you find some really cool designers who've just popped up in the last few years who use them. Um, so yeah,
I feel like
it's
that was a
hard.
very diplomatic answer. I feel like
Yeah,
you've balanced both sides very well.
exactly. Look up the Vogue article if you're unsure.
Amazing. And what is your favorite piece that you've ever made?
Such a good question as well.
And
I
I also
want to
would
say my
like to
engagement
describe it.
ring, but that's
It's
so
an
boring.
it's an audio here, so I'd like you to describe it as well so people can imagine it.
Okay. Um,
You can say your engagement ring if you like. I mean, there's
I
no
do
right.
I apps. I'm obsessed with my engagement ring, of course. But I want to say something else.
Okay, what client one? What like commissioned piece is your favorite?
So I think we did. Um, I've started using this Zambian emerald dealer. Zambia produces some of the best emeralds in the world, after Colombia. Um, and I have this emerald dealer who is from there. Well, not from there. I have this emerald dealer who lives there. We actually went to school together in Scotland, and then she moved out there and started working with the mines there, and now she started her own thing. Um, and I'm obsessed with emeralds. I have some little heart emerald earrings on that I made for my wedding. Um, and if my engagement ring wasn't a diamond, I would have gone for an emerald, although they are very soft, so they're not the best for engagement rings. Anyway, I've made a few emerald engagement rings. I have told my clients that they're quite soft, so they might scratch, but we've gone directly with this Zambian emerald dealer and we've chosen the rough together, so the rough gemstone, and then they've cut it to the exact proportions that we're looking for, which is an amazing process. My clients that we've done this with so far love receiving the photos and videos from the cutter in Zambia, and you can just kind of see it's almost like a farm to table concept. You can see the whole journey of the emerald, which is really special, which you don't get when you buy gemstones in Hatton Garden. So this also means that you kind of get the most for your money because you're cutting out that extra gemstone dealer in Hatton Garden. um, and it's just a really nice thing to be able to work with someone that you went to school with. And yeah, I just love the process from start to finish. So a couple of rings that I've done with that. Um, it's so hard to describe jewelry. And it's really funny when clients, especially in initial phone calls, when I'm like, what kind of thing do you want? They try to describe it to me, and it's really hard to figure out what vocab to use. Um, But we did one that was really cool. It was almost like a donut shape. Um, and it was similar to a gypsy ring. I don't know if you know what that looks like.
No.
And then it was a trilogy. So it was an Asher cut emerald, so square. And we tilted it, so turned on its side, and then added two tapered baguettes to kind of frame it on either side. Um, so that was cool. So that's probably one of my favorites, not necessarily because of the design, but because of the process. I think with the design, I mean, I don't make anything that I don't love. And that sounds bad, but like because obviously I have my own personal style, but I think we make it to something that's really beautiful, and I wouldn't want to deliver a piece of jewelry that I wasn't happy with. I think I'd have to start from scratch again if it wasn't good.
I feel like that's a definition of a creative person. It
Yeah,
needs to be this way. It needs to be this
that's
way.
nice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And looking ahead, we're halfway through 2024. So for the rest of the year and beyond, what sort of plans do you have and what are you seeing lying ahead?
Um, I think my next goal is to find a little studio space. Currently I work between Soho and Pimlico. My office space in Soho isn't the most private, so I tend to show gemstones in my flat in Pimlico, which is really nice because people come into a quiet, safe space. I don't really like taking out gemstones in central London, or traveling with them too much. So I think it's quite nice to come to the Pimlico space, but I think it'd be even nicer to have a cool little studio space. Ideally in Soho. I love Soho so much. I think it's such a creative buzz and just get lots of inspiration around there, and it's just a fun place to be. Um, so that is definitely on the agenda for the next year. Um, but at the moment, just keep making lots of beautiful engagement rings, and then also relaunch the Staples collection just before Christmas.
Amazing, amazing. And if people want to check out your jewelry or inquire about commissioning a piece, where should they go?
Get in touch via Instagram or TikTok. I check my DMs regularly, but you can also send me an email at sophie@whitelawgold.com.
Incredible. I will link those below as well so people can check them out in the show notes directly and have a little peruse, even if it's for inspiration to look at lovely, sparkly things. It's definitely worth a scroll. So I would recommend that. And Sophie, thanks so much for coming on today and talking me through. I feel like we've gone through the whole process and also the psychological aspect of jewelry. I feel is so fascinating, and the process that people want to actually speak to someone and having that like personalized, just someone to talk to about their vision and actually producing the product. So thank you so much for being so open about it as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. I'll stop recording.